What is going on, guys? This is Ryan, aka Wags, from those videos on those deck techs that you guys do not watch. And today I am excited to bring you all the premiere episode of the Loth-Wolf Podcast presented by the Brothers Dimm. I am joined by fellow Loth-Wolf Pack members Jim, Chris, and Bob. What's going on, guys?
Hey.
Hey, how we doing?
Before we get started, let's go around right now and tell everyone a little bit about yourself, since this is our first episode. So, Jim, why don't you start us off? Tell us a little bit about your Destiny career thus far, your illustrious Destiny career, and introduce the world to the Loth-Wolf Pack.
Oh man, that's like a pretty good illustrious Destiny career.
Yeah, it's long and storied.
Yeah,
Great kid, don't
it's very
cocky.
Good. Just to keep it quick and simple, I got involved in Destiny right before Legacies came out. So right after the end of the first block, Chris, who we'll speak in just a moment here, was getting into the game a little prior, and I told him I played X-Wing and I was, a big Star Wars guy, and I had worked with him outside of, Destiny. We worked together. And so since getting to know him, he kind of was like, hey, I have a surplus of cards. And as we all know now, if you are buying the entire set and you buy boxes and boxes, you're going to end up with a ton of extra commons, uncommons, and rares. So Chris was able to give me like all his extras, and it kind of catapulted me in my interest in the game. And then from there, we evolved. So I'll pass it over to Chris and kind of let him tell the rest of the story from here on out.
We
You're
definitely
not even going to include your top 8?
I top aided a Chicago regional one time and was the only non-Snoke Thrawn deck. So
you ran a YOLO deck and beat 50 other people.
I ran a YOLO Han Biggs. But I will say this, that is the definition of my career. I'm not good. Just roll the dice and pray to God you get stuff.
All right, Chris, sorry to cut you off, Chris.
No,
but go
totally
ahead.
fair. Jim summed it up pretty well, but I kind of got in from the beginning, from Awakenings. I've kind of been a Fantasy Flight fanboy for a long time, played Netrunner and a lot of the other products, and the Star Wars, what do they call it? The living card game, LCG. So when they discontinued that and announced Destiny, I was kind of in from the beginning, and coincidentally, just as Jim said, meeting him at work and then kind of getting him into the game. And then you guys, after that, just kind of got us to where we are now. But I've been a long time game player, Magic the Gathering, way back in the day, and kind of evolved into this. So I think Jim summed it up pretty well, though, as to how we got here.
For sure.
Yeah.
Bob, what about you and your droids? Tell us about them.
So yeah, I got in at the similar time as Jim. Chris kind of hooked me up in the beginning. I was big into X-Wing, and Ryan and Jim and I played X-Wing pretty exclusively for a while. I was actually buying a bunch of singles on Amazon for like X-Wing mods, and I was buying them all from the same guy. And I asked him, dude, why are you selling all of your stuff? And he said, I'm pitching all my X-Wing. I'm getting all into Destiny. And at the time I thought, oh, that's a cool game. I don't know if I'll ever play it. Looks interesting though. And then actually playing it for the first time and culminated with realizing that all my X-Wing stuff is now obsolete with the second version out. I went fully in on Destiny and haven't looked back. So my greatest achievement in Destiny is I got a store champ out of, hey, it was only a couple people, but I'll count it, with Snoke Afra Battle Droid before the Snoke errata. And now that's a thing. I love Afra. And
the only man wearing a tank top in the room.
I was the only person.
He is right now too.
Yeah, I'm always wearing tanks.
I will say this though, to credit Bob's point about us getting into Destiny at the same time. I remember when we first started, we were playing against each other. Chris gave us his surplus of cards, and literally, I think in our 30 card deck, 20 cards were dice cards.
I was like, wait, can you have as many dice as you want?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why wouldn't you have that many dice?
And I remember Chris coming over and he's like, all right, guys, let's talk about this. Realistically here, how can we afford all this? And ever since that moment, we've been hooked.
Wait, you're telling me my Z95 Headhunter isn't good?
Yeah.
I mean,
All day.
that's a great
I
card.
played that.
Yeah,
That was
same.
great. I loved that card.
If I can interject
All right,
for a
Wags.
minute. Jim,
Oh yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
So like going back to when I started, some game you guys play board games and other games. Like some games you try and it doesn't really click with you, but from the first time I played the starter decks, the original Kylo and original Rey starter decks, like I played it with just a random buddy of mine, and I thought it was really, really awesome from the very beginning. And that's just as base as you can get. So, that kind of like drew me in, and then eventually spreading it to you guys obviously helped. But, I thought this game had a lot going for it from the very beginning. So I don't know about you guys and that, but.
No, yeah, I totally agree with that. And to kind of continue the conversation, but also to go off of yours is, we'd spent a lot of money in X-Wing. And when I dive into something, as we all are, we have to go head first and go all in. And so was playing X-Wing, liked it, but it just took so long to get to the table. So when Jim had started mentioning Destiny, I was pretty hesitant. Just because I had spent a lot of money and I didn't want to get into another money grab. And he convinced me, pulled my leg and all that. And when I first started, the first time it hit the table, it was like, okay, this game's pretty awesome. And immediately sold off all the X-Wing stuff. And, really haven't looked back since. I really do enjoy the game. It's
not to repeat, but that's kind of how I was. Like, you play some games and you're like lukewarm on it. You're like, it's all right. But this game felt really, really good from the very beginning with, such base mechanics and very limited card pool. So I was all in from the beginning.
And I'm sure everybody listening, I'm sure is probably the exact same way. It's so accessible. It's the creation the creative process that goes into it. It's just, there's no other game that you can play with all that going for it. And that can be over in anywhere from like 15 to half hour max. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Time is accessibility is definitely a major factor. So I totally agree.
Yep. Sweet. So that the four of us are the Loth-Wolf Pack members. We call ourselves
as we've dubbed it.
That we gave ourselves.
As we've dubbed it. Yeah.
Yeah. We self-named. We haven't, we're not known outside of the four of us by that name.
I think that to speak on the Loth-Wolf name, it's what, like you said, when we all came into the game together, and then when we decided to go into the competitive scene, we were like the four new kids on the block, and it was us versus the known commodity. So it was like NWO taking on the WCW, baby.
But we took our beats for a while.
Yeah, we did. We didn't have. There's no Bischoff or nothing.
No, yeah, we paid our dues and all that, but so the four of us. That's if you hear or wonder why we came up with that name, it's completely self-imposed.
It's a pro wrestling reference.
We have not earned that name, but that is henceforth what we shall be called. So, moving on here. Before we get into the major discussion, there are a few noteworthy things that we should talk about, and the first thing is GenCon. People are on their way to GenCon as we speak, I am sure.
Yep.
GenCon is basically the second biggest tournament in the Destiny community. It's the North American Championship. It takes place in Indianapolis. It happens once a year, and this weekend it is taking place. So if we all remember back from last year, I'm sure Jim has his opinions on this one, but last year's GenCon gave rise to the Milpocalypse, which was Anakin, Cassian, and Yoda, and it was a 3-wide mill deck that seemed to kind of just ravage the game for a while.
That's so fun to play against.
Yeah, I love mill.
With second chance.
I actually ran that deck a ton for the last, I don't know how many tournaments I've ran that deck. So I was in love with it. I know that the vast majority of the community was not happy with it, but Chris, do you think that we can expect something as big as Milpocalypse to happen this year? I feel like last year Milpocalypse happened and it was kind of like all people talked about, and there was panic throughout the game. So do you think that it's something like that? It doesn't have to necessarily be mill,
right?
But do you think something like that's possible? Or if not, what do you think the field's going to be?
So it's kind of funny talking about Milpocalypse because the guys from the Hyperloops basically flipped the meta upside down at GenCon, at that tournament last year. Right? Like before GenCon, that deck was kind of an unknown commodity. Right? Like they had kind of broken the game behind the scenes and brought it to that event. And I forget the exact statistics here, but X of them brought the deck and probably almost all of them made the top cut or whatever you want to say.
I think Honestly Sarcastic ran something different, but I think 4 of the top 8 were all the exact same deck.
And that was their team. That was their team deck, right? So
correct.
In this year's GenCon, I don't think that kind of thing exists as far as something that's not aware by most of the general public that are going to Gen Con, right? If that makes sense. I think a lot of the top decks are
Totally.
public knowledge, droids, Ewoks, Vader, etc. I guess droids falls into maybe 2 or 3 different categories of what kind of droid variant you want to run. So I guess to kind of compare it to Mill-Apocalypse from 2018, I guess that's kind of a unique situation from that tournament, but I definitely could see droids, quote unquote droids, whether it's, version A, B, C, or D, maybe being 15 to 20% of the metagame. So if we're talking 150 people, maybe that's 30 people are playing different droid variants. But, I could be wrong, but if that's, one of the strongest decks at the moment, and there's so many different varieties of it to play, it could appeal to a lot of different people in going into the weekend.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I definitely think droids are public enemy number one. I don't think that they are as frustrating to play against. And I think the big difference between droids and Millpocalypse is people weren't prepared for a mill deck that was that strong.
Right, yeah.
So people have been testing right, like you were saying, but people have been testing droids. They've been testing the different variants that you talked about. And I think they know either what the deck is supposed to do, what to do if you're playing against it. And if you haven't tested for droids, then, what are you doing?
You're going to have a bad time.
Living under a rock. Yeah, right. So I think the big strong thing about Millpocalypse was that so many people just did not expect it. And that's a great meta call. It's a great deck overall. And that's kind of why we play this game, is to find those types of decks. And like, I agree with your statement, as I don't think that there is an unknown deck out there that is going to have the impact.
Right.
That
I could be wrong.
did.
Maybe there's any of these teams, ABG, Hyperloops, Council, I guess.
Yeah, we're the idiots that aren't going to
and
Gen
we're the
Con.
ones trying to figure out what the meta's going to be.
Going to Gen Con.
Yes, but from everything I've seen, a lot of the major teams, it seems like there's kind of a general consensus onto what is expected. So I guess a little bit different from last year, but to kind of compare it to Apocalypse, I wouldn't be surprised if C-3PO and R2-D2 plus blank partner were a majority of the field on day one.
Totally.
I think it will be.
All right, Mr. Bob, if you were going to Gen Con right now, if you were on your way, what deck would you bring?
Great question, Wags. I know we just talked about droids pretty extensively. I would actually bring the droids. I've been playing them since this set came out. R2-D2 has always been my favorite character. Some say he's the hero of the series.
This is true.
Always wanted to play R2 as a character. Finally got my chance, and it happened to work out really well. So I think my pairing for the droids is R2-D2, Elite C-3PO, Elite Satine with Faithful Companions. Satine. I know a lot of people are running Han. Not going to criticize it, but I think with Faithful Companions, you get an additional, after you activate this character ability with Satine, that Han just doesn't have, which I think is kind of helpful. Yeah. It allows you to reroll an extra dice. So let's say if you can't do C-3PO's or R2's ability twice when you roll them out. The deck, it's a mean deck. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of action cheating cards where you can activate 2 characters, i.e. Droid Stay Out, Ewok Ambush, Off the Sensors. You can even throw Instigate in there if you feel really mean. And then obviously you got your supports. You got Entourage. You got Hailfire Droid Tank. You have Mr. Bones, the underdog in the droid set.
The Ewok Slayer. Yeah.
So I think that deck, obviously, like we talked about, you can play it with Han. You can do it with, I've seen like other versions with Ayla. You can run, but the main core is R2, 3PO, and whoever you want to plug in there. It's a really good deck. Obviously Afra is really good right now too. She's kind of taken a backseat, obviously, to droids, Ewoks, and Vader. But I think the deck to run at Gen Con will be R2, 3PO, blank, I say Satine, and then Faithful Companions.
Yeah, I would be really shocked if R2 and C-3PO did not win Gen Con. I would be really shocked. But hey, man, I've seen crazier things happen in this game. There's been character pairings. Yeah,
it's a dice game.
I know, but playing that deck, I feel like it's going to be the majority of the field. Playing against it, it's just.
I guess it's going to come down to maybe people that have had more testing and figuring out which droid version is better in the mirror.
Right, that's a good question too.
To combat that.
Yep. For sure.
Because I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm sure most people do.
Yeah, moving on real quick. So the last piece of news, or the other piece of news before we get into the bulk of our discussion here, in what seemed like seconds after Spark of Hope, I feel like we were all ripping the boxes as this announcement came on, FFG actually released a spoiler article for the next set called Covert Missions. So getting a little sneaky on us. That was like it's nice because Covert Missions, it was very covert that they were just like, oh yeah, by the way, enjoy C-3PO and ripping all your stuff, but here's the new set. So looks like we're getting a few new mechanisms. So the last block, we got the mods, I believe. I think that was across the galaxy. This one, it looks like we're getting we got a new alt win condition. We get a new keyword. So it looks like they're doing some funky stuff on the last block. So Jim, we got 2 new Death Star plots, alt win conditions too. What do you think about them? What are they? Are they viable?
Okay.
What do you think?
So I'm going to read them both really quick, and then we'll kind of discuss as a team. I'll tell you my gut reaction afterwards. I'm going to try really hard not to mess this up.
Take your time.
All right, so destroy the Death Star, which is a hero plot. 2 cost. After setup, give this plot 20 shield. You can resolve your pilot and vehicle dice showing ranged damage against this plot. Action. If this plot has no shields, spend 1 resource to roll 1 of your pilot dice and 1 of your vehicle dice. Then, if both of those dice are showing damage, you win the game. On the opposite side, for the villains, at 2 cost as well, is Construct the Death Star, which just says action, remove 2 of your dice, each showing a resource, to place 2 resources on this plot. Then, if 15 or more resources are on this plot, you win the game. My gut reaction is that the Death Star, the construction of the Death Star, seems to me a bit easier just from perception, because being able to take an action to remove 2 of your dice showing resource, to place 2 resources on there, in a game where it seems like getting to resource sides of your dice, a lot of focus these days, and getting dice out that have the resource symbol seems to be like easy. I won't say easy, but easier than in the past. And then destroying the Death Star seems like it's a bit harder. A lot more things need to go into it, I feel like. First, you need to get your ships out.
Just move rocks.
Yeah, you need to get your ships out. Then you need to resolve damage against it. And then even after you take off all the shields, then you still got to pay $1 to resolve a pilot and a vehicle dice showing range. So it just seems like there's more steps to destroying the Death Star. What do you guys think? I don't know.
Well, one interesting thing to note before I kick it to the other guys is we're going to talk about Krennic and Luke in a second here. These plots are both red. So Krennic's -1 to construct the Death Star, he's already red, so you get a bonus off that. But for Luke's blue. So in order to field this plot here, you need to, and for the -1 cost that Luke gives you, you need to field a red partner for him. So it's interesting how they did that or why they did that, but just one thing. But
yeah, that's
Chris,
a
what do you
good
think
point.
about
And
these guys?
I never really actually considered that until you just
Same.
said that right now, actually.
Well, good thing we're going to talk about it when we talk about Luke and who to pair him with.
Yeah, right.
On the surface, it is awesome. I love it. I think it's really awesome, regardless if it's competitive, viable or not. I think the whole theme of it is really, really cool, and just giving this kind of option to the game, I think is great. I have no problem with it at all. Whether it's competitive viable, I'm going to hedge towards probably not. But as far as it just being awesome and cool and thematic and fun, I'm 100% on board with that all day.
FFG is going to make a ton of money on D20s. They're going to come out with
Yeah, some cool Death Star.
Destiny branded
Yeah.
D20s.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. A D20 in the shape of a Death Star would kind of be hot.
That would be.
Side
I've seen a
note,
dial, actually.
This is why I'm like the least productive member of this team. Have you ever noticed, and this is just me, and maybe one of our Star Wars knowledge between the 3 of us could answer this question. All right,
There's 4 of us
Well,
here.
I'm not counting myself because I don't know the answer. So,
Gotcha.
never understood this, right? So, like, the Sith and all the bad guys, their lightsabers are red, right? And then, like, the good guys are usually either blue or green. So you got Jedis.
I think I know where you're
Why
going with
do
this.
the TIE fighters shoot a green laser and the X-Wings shoot a red laser? What was up with that, George Lucas?
Man, that's
That's
next
next level.
I'm not really sure.
That's because they take all the crappy kyber crystals that they're not going to use, and they use them to power up their vehicles. They're just like, you got a red one, you idiot. Put it in the X-Wing.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
actually.
there you go.
I think that's canon in my head from now on until somebody proves me wrong.
As far as going back to the plots, I was mentioning, I think I mentioned it to you guys in maybe our group chat, but I think these two things, the constructing and destroying of the Death Star, if Fantasy Flight ever releases official rules for multiplayer, like 2 versus 2, I think this could be super fun for 2 versus 2. If you had,
I agree.
Totally.
Yeah.
I don't know where the plot would, maybe if you and your teammate had 58 points to work with total, and then you had the plot to share or something.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of casual players could house rule this for 2 versus 2, and that would be really awesome.
I think my favorite thing to come with these plots, I agree. I don't know if they're going to be viably competitive, but I think what these plots give way to is themed nights at a local or something like that, where you're going to say, hey, you're either going to destroy the Death Star or construct the Death Star. You have to have that plot. You can't do damage to another character, whatever it is, but that has to be your win condition.
That'd be cool.
And I think some of the troubles, at least in our meta, and our meta is insanely competitive. I take a big blame for that just because I don't like to play fun stuff. I don't like to play things that I think might not be competitive. But I think if you open up this and say, hey, we're going to either destroy or construct the Death Star, that's the theme night, you have to bring a deck, whatever. I think that opens the door to new players that don't know how to play because it's fun. Like, hey, you're going to do the trench run. Let's see if we can do it. And I just think that these are really good for that.
I would totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, in preview articles before, I've looked at a card and been like, oh, that's trash. And then it turns out to, like, Anakin Skywalker. I was like, who needs this little idiot? And then little
Yeah,
Anakin ends up winning GenCon in a mill deck. Who knew?
for sure.
It's like shooting womp rats, dude.
Shooting womp rats. I just think it's cool how, these plots kind of, they're as groundbreaking as they are, looking forward to the future. I mean, what else could they do with plots? Right? If they're willing to go this far,
For sure.
I think that's pretty cool, and I think it just kind of breathes some new life in the game and open, like as you said, Ryan, kind of breathe some new life maybe for people who aren't super competitive and want to just play the theme of Star Wars or whatever.
Absolutely. I love that. So, Chris, do you want to talk to us about the new piloting keyword that we got?
Yeah, piloting. So this is a new keyword. So last block, Legacies block, we got the power action, which was introduced on cards. So now we have piloting. So some characters, so in the article they previewed Luke Skywalker, Red 5. He is a character apprentice pilot, and he also has the keyword piloting. So what piloting says is if a character has piloting, anytime they are activated, you may also activate one of your vehicles. If the character, or with the character considered to be piloting that vehicle. So if you activate Luke, if you have a support out or a vehicle, it must be a vehicle. You can also activate the vehicle, and then Luke is piloting that vehicle, which we believe to be until the end of the round, because they haven't really clarified that yet.
I mean, but realistically, though, thematically, can a pilot ever just like eject?
He just hops out. Yeah.
Right.
They kind of need to clarify that, but it doesn't really say if he pilots the game, or he or she pilots the game or pilots the vehicle forever until the end of the game, or just till the end of the round. Or
I feel like it's till the end of the round, because if someone removes your vehicle too, then you're not committed to that vehicle. I mean, you could always just say, I'm piloting another X-Wing or something like that. If someone desperate measures your Luke's off the table.
That's true. But then, so with the characters that have piloting, they're also introducing piloting specific mechanics to new supports. So for example, Luke Skywalker's X-Wing has a power action that says re-roll this die, or if Luke Skywalker is piloting this support, turn this die to any side. So some supports are getting buffs off of being piloted, and even more so if they're being piloted by specific characters. But the main mechanic here is piloting itself, where you activate a character with piloting, and then immediately you get to activate a vehicle you control, and then your character is considered to be piloting that vehicle. So you kind of get to action sheet a vehicle as an upgrade into your pool. Initially,
to interject real quick, Chris.
Yeah.
In the article of the spoiler, it says every time a character is activated, you can also activate a vehicle. So that makes it seem as if after the round is over, they are no longer piloting that vehicle.
Oh, I see. Yeah, right. Makes sense. They think they make these things a little more clear. But yeah, no, I understand. We read between the lines and assume it's every round it resets. But initially, I think it's great. I think it's cool. To this point, a lot of the support decks have just been huge. A lot of armor reinforcement decks, Vader's Fist type decks, maybe even a couple sets ago, planetary bombardment type things where you're trying to cheat out a gigantic, huge support and get some value out of it. But I think in this piloting case, maybe it makes a case for hero vehicle swarm. A lot of 2-cost type things, or even TIE fighters again, stuff like that. I'd heard some discussions on some other podcasts about people not being so interested in it. They didn't like it at all. They thought it was kind of broken or whatever. I can understand what they're saying, but it's not like every character is going to have piloting, right? I mean, they're going to probably make a couple on hero and villain. So
Well, we know Poe's coming. He's on the side of the box, and I would imagine he's going to be a pilot.
Right. So let's say we have Poe and Luke. I mean, that's 2 characters that are piloting. It's not going to be like it's all over the place. So
right.
So for me, I'm all for it. I think it's great. It gives especially decks kind of like hero vehicles, wide vehicles. If they can action cheat 1 action, they're still going to be slow anyway. So I don't really see that much of a problem with it. But that's just me. So what do you guys think?
Well, Bob, you want to cover Luke?
Yeah, I'll jump into Luke. So the Luke character. So it's Luke Skywalker, Red 5, standing by.
I'm sorry, Bob. I stole some of your
That's
Luke
okay.
thunder there.
No, it's all good. I mean, we're all talking about it. We're all part of the Wolf Pack here. So
yeah, sure.
10 cost, or sorry, 10 health character, 11 for 1, 14 for elite. He is a character apprentice as well, and a pilot. His ability is piloting. Yeah, he gets everything. The point value of the Death Star plot is decreased by 1, and his character reads, before you resolve a support dice of a vehicle piloted by this character, you may increase its value by 1. And he's got some pretty awesome sides. He's got 4 range sides, which is pretty good, especially if you're playing against the plot.
It's pretty good, yeah.
And then his X-Wing also has 4 melee sides. His X-Wing is actually almost the exact same dice, minus 1 resource is replaced with a shield on the X-Wing. So that's pretty sweet as well. And then Chris actually already went over the power action, so we don't have to really go over that again. But yeah, I think
it's a 2-cost, man.
It's a 2-cost X-Wing. I mean, we found that like X-Wings are usually 2-cost. Poe's black one is 2-cost. The regular X-Wings are 2 as well. I think, the pairing I've seen floating around already since this was spoiled was the old Poe Dameron, who is more than a pilot, actually. He'll get you your red, and then you can run the plot like we talked about earlier. How do you get the plot with Luke? Obviously, I don't know what the new Poe is going to be, or what his ability is. He probably will be a pilot. So like we said, we'll see what happens. Yeah, one could only assume, but we'll see. I mean, obviously we have no idea what this set is going to include, but that's a cool little pairing that's out there right now, just to kind of wet our chops, so to speak.
I will say his die is so much damage.
Oh my gosh,
points.
It's awesome.
A lot.
It's crazy. I think the plot is going to be a trap with him.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to be good without it.
Right.
Totally. Yeah.
All right, so moving on to the last 2. I saved all the legendaries for myself because I'm greedy like that.
Typical.
So we have Director Krennic. So we finally have a playable Krennic. He is 10-13. He's got 10 health. He is the Death Star Mastermind. The point value of the Death Star is decreased by 1, just like Luke. After you activate this character, you may turn one of your dice, it does not have to be his dice, to a side showing a value of 1. So I think Krennic is crazy. He's got a 2 focus, a 1 discard, a 2 discard, and then a resource and a resource. I think he's extremely strong. I can see him making Mill finally viable for the villains. I just really like this character. I think he's really versatile. He's got the sweet spot of 10-13 where he's going to fit into a lot of decks. He's got an auto focus upon activation. He's got a 2 focus. His dice are incredible. And if you're going to try and build a Death Star with him, he can auto focus 2 resources. What do you guys think about Krennic?
I really agree with what you just said. Like super round. Can be played in a mill deck, can be played as a money generator, as a focuser. You can put him in. He kind of after you activate this, turn a die to a side showing a value of 1. Reminds me of Piet, and the TIE Swarm in Piet was a thing. And I feel like Krennic is very flexible. The point cost being his best attribute at the 10-13. Mena, you got any thoughts?
He's almost Satine-like. What do you think?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Ryan, I think you hit the nail on the head. He seems undercosted for what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, by
I think
a
he's very,
mile.
very above the curve.
Yeah, I mean, the two resource sides for 13 by itself, kind of like Wat Tambor-ish or Watto-ish. But then, like you mentioned, you automatically get to turn him to $1 every
Or a
time.
discard.
It doesn't matter. Right, or a discard. But yeah, either way you want to play it for 10 or 13 points, as you mentioned, that die plus his ability seems very above the curve.
Yeah,
for me.
I love Krennic. I'm excited to start building decks with him, but not as excited as I am to build decks with the Fett man. Boba finally gets his due justice.
Boba
I
Fett.
feel like we've only had one Boba
Where?
Fett. Boba Fett, where? He's
Boba
infamous
Fett.
and ruthless, man. Come on. We've had 13 Han Solos, and we finally get our second Boba Fett, which is a legendary. He's really good. I think this character, I think I'm already way hyped about him more than any other card that can get spoiled. Bob, you can have Poe Dameron all to yourself. I don't really care. He is character bounty hunter. After an opponent's character is defeated, for each bounty on it, you may roll one of this character's character or upgrade dice into your pool. He is a 1 range, a 2 range, a 2 melee, a 1 disrupt, and a 1 resource for 11-14. I am in love.
He's hot.
I'm in love with Boba Fett.
He's hot.
Yeah, I think he's got kind of a pseudo Balatique effect where you can re-roll his character dice or his upgrade dice into the pool. As we've seen in this set, I think bounties are kind of good. Like, I don't think...
Really?
Like, last set, everyone's kind of like, oh, last set, everyone was like, bounties are trash. They're not good. I think if you're building around a bounty hunter deck like Boba, I think he finally gives you the incentive to put bounties in your deck. I don't think there's a character right now besides maybe IG88, but there's no other character that really incentivizes you to put bounties into your deck. I think Boba does that, and that's why I really like him. Plus, he's a 1/2/2 for 11-14. He's going to go with a ton of different characters. I'm sure he's going to slot into an aggro deck, but I think he's definitely going to be competitive. I think he's going to find a home somewhere. But
The fact that he's kind of going back to Krennic, he's 14 points. I mean, that is so cheap.
it's awesome for a 1/2/2.
He's got to be good. Yeah, he's got to be good.
I think we've noticed that FFG is starting to make a lot of like characters. They've realized that you can't make someone too expensive. I mean, they're starting to make people more affordable that you can pair them.
They haven't
with more
figured out
people.
Obi-Wan yet. What do you think, Jim?
They haven't figured out Obi-Wan, and that's the downfall. But Jim knows the
I won't
pain
even
and suffering
speak
with
on
that.
it.
Yeah.
Greatest Jedi ever to live.
Boba Fett, and then I'm going to touch on the slave real quick. The slave 1, Boba Fett and Jango have piloting when that comes down. After the support becomes piloted by a bounty hunter, you may deal 1 damage to a character. So it's damage from hand automatically. It's got a 2 range, a 2 range, a 2 indirect side, a disrupt, and a resource. I mean, I think bounty hunters are just going to really take off after this set. I mean, the people are playing Django and fooling around with Django a little bit. I think Django's going to be right at home in this next set here.
Father-son pairing.
Yeah, right. Pretty excited. So, does anybody have anything else to say about Covert Missions?
I look forward to getting some more news in the future. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's I think we've talked about it a little bit, and I'm not going to touch on this a lot, but the direction that Destiny has been going, there have been a lot of changes. They're not afraid to go outside the box anymore, and I really, really like that. And it's really cool. I like how they're kind of giving each color and now each subtype or subcategory a kind of an identity. I really like that too. So can't speak enough. Really excited for Covert Missions. So on to the main discussion today. We are talking all about the resurgence of Blue Hero. Not sure whether you guys agree with me on this or not, but thus far in our testing and all that stuff, Spark of Hope has been my favorite set since Legacies. That's when I started, and I loved Legacies. But Spark of Hope, I think, is my favorite. The reason being, I think it gives so many decks so much strength. I think there's so many viable decks out there, whether you want to play droids or Blue Hero or 2 dice and go with Ewoks, whatever you want to do. I've been loving Spark of Hope, but Blue Hero, I think, got the much necessary pickup. So the focus of the main conversation is going to kind of be talk about some of the specific cards that Spark of Hope released that give rise or that allow Blue Hero to kind of reclaim its spot back on maybe not the top tier, but just under it. So I'm going to start the conversation. I am going to talk about Neemon Mastery and kind of the Neemon Mastery package, I think, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this opinion, I think Neemon Mastery might be the best blue upgrade since Ancient Lightsaber for heroes. I'm not going to include Sith Holocron in that, but I think Neemon Mastery is crazy. For a 2 cost, it's so good at what it does. I think last time I checked on eBay, it's actually probably the most expensive card in the set. I think it actually surpassed C3PO. And I know that we're only focusing kind of on blue hero right now, but I think if you're running blue, it doesn't even have to be blue sticks. If you're running any blue deck, villain or hero, Neemon Mastery has to go in that deck. I mean, do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really powerful upgrade. I mean, obviously, if you got a character that has specials, you can special chain, which is really fast. It helps you out, get out of jams quickly. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a good neutral blue card. Should be in every, at least, blue deck that you're running. Can only be in your blue decks, I guess.
Yeah, right. It's a focus machine. So when you play it, you get to focus. It can touch either your opponents or your dice. So it's super versatile.
No blanks, which is always good.
No blanks, 2 specials. You get to interact with a ton of dice. Plus, it's got a 2 melee side. So if you need to, you can do damage with it. You pair that with Draw Closer, which is a 2 cost event that says resolve one of your dice showing melee damage without removing it from your pool. If you have Neemon Mastery on that character, you can increase that by 2. So you can do 4 damage out of hand if you have a 2 showing on anything. Plus it stays in. It's kind of like My Ally is the Force from the Awakenings block. So I don't know. I just think that this card alone with kind of the other, I know Pushing Slash is a part of the Neemon package. I'm not going to really talk about that, but I just think Neemon Mastery has been bananas in my testing. I think it's really good. I think it's insanely strong. I mean, I can't say enough about it. Anybody else want to chime in here?
I'll jump in. I agree with you. I think that it's where we are now. And it's funny that we're talking about this card and relating it more to Blue Hero when it could also be used with villains. And the reason being is because even though it's neutral, it does really help Blue Hero in a sense that there was not a blue card from the previous sets that we have right now in that are legal that really put Blue Hero over the top in the past. Force Speed and Ancient Lightsaber were 2 neutrals that help Blue Hero if you liked playing Blue Hero sticks. But this is our first card that we've got in a while that, like you said, is so versatile and can be utilized in so many different ways. And to only cost 2 is a pretty big deal. You easily get it on the table. A lot of the Blue Heroes have specials and special chain. Ayla, Yoda, Rey. A lot of them can just kind of bounce from special to special. So it's versatile. It goes really well with a lot of the Blue Heroes that are out there. I'm in love with it. I do agree. I can see down the way, I can see this card being one of the cards that is looked back on as one of the more expensive cards that a new player in the future would have to pay a hefty price to get.
Yeah, and I think right now with the Snoke nerf, I think blue villain sticks at least, it's kind of gone away. So right now I kind of see this card as strictly a hero card. I know it is neutral, but there aren't many like viable blue villain stick options out there. Kylo's kind of gone away. Kylo 2 or whatever it was. He's been kind of gone, but yeah, I agree with you, Jim. I think when we look back on Spark of Hope, this is going to be the card to own, I think. Over C3PO, over R2. I think Neemon's going to be that card.
I agree, and I just want to add that it's so refreshing to have a 2-cost card, and the special is the highlight of the card, and them giving us 2 special sides is a big deal. If they want the card to be impactful and they want the special to happen, I get upset when there's one special side on a die when it's the key reason for playing the card is the special. And so it's like, if you want the card to get play and you want it to be used, then give it 2 chances to hit it. And I love that about it. Your odds of rolling it are good, and hero always needs focus, and soft mitigation is always good. So love it. Can't say enough about it, like you said. And looking forward to using it in almost all Blue Hero and blue villain decks.
Totally.
Let's go, baby.
So do you think Zuckuss would be more playable if he had 2 specials?
Yeah, he would.
Yeah, I mean, he's only got 1. I never
He'd win GenCon.
Hey,
I never rolled a special with him ever.
So Bob, messing around with Raylo a tad bit. We saw you on stream a couple times with Raylo.
Yeah.
I believe you lost to somebody playing Beckett Tolson. I'm not sure.
I
who was
think,
playing
yeah,
that.
I don't know if it was maybe you. Yeah, so
It was probably Wags.
it was Wags. The viewers at home had to deal with my training wheels. I was like playing Ray Kylo for the first time, so I definitely missed some of the power actions. But yeah, it's a cool deck. I mean, obviously they're meant to be put together. FFG made temporary truce for a reason. Mainly, it's only for them, and they made Snoke's throne room only for them.
Literally can't play with
I
anybody
mean, you
else.
could play Snoke's throne room with other people too, but I don't know why you would. Yeah, I mean, they're a cool pairing. They obviously work well together. They're very synergistic. Ray gives the shields, Kylo does the damage, and can like give shields to Ray to like kind of go back and forth. It's a cool deck. I don't know if it's necessarily tier one, but it's definitely fun to play. I mean, obviously, doing thematic pairings is ideally what the game should be. Whether or not we always do thematic pairings is up for the meta to decide and what we normally do. But yeah, it's a cool deck. I enjoy it. Recommend everyone at least try it once. And that's what I would say. I mean, the one card that FFG also did make that kind of is supposed to go in this deck is Polarity. So the one cost event, it has Ambush, and you spot a hero character to give a hero one shield, spot a villain to deal one damage to a character. Ideally, you'd only put this in the Raylo deck. Could you put it in another deck? Absolutely. Probably wouldn't be that ideal. But if you play against me, you know I love damage from hand, and that ambush with one damage could make or break, could kill somebody.
Wait, you like damage from hand?
I do
Wow.
actually. So I don't know. It's an interesting pairing, but yeah, Polarity definitely has to go in the Raylo deck. It's cool. You can get all the hero cards, villain cards, cross card lightsaber, which interestingly enough is not unique. I think that's interesting. We don't have Kylo's lightsaber. I don't think there was one in the.
No, there was.
There was one in the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Got in after that, I guess. So it's cool. Ray's saber is awesome. Neiman goes in that deck and it works well. So
Totally. So, Jim, you're the resident Blue Hero player. You were playing it well before this episode came out when we were talking about Blue Hero. You played it in the dark times of Blue Hero. I feel like you've been on the roller coaster from the beginning. It's like, oh, hey, Yoda, he's good. Okay, Obi-Wan sucks. I can't put him with anybody other than Maz. Qui-Gon's kind of cool, but who do we pair him with? You've kind of rode the roller coaster. So what specific upgrades from this set got you excited? What were you pumped to put in, like Qui-Gon decks or whatever? What do you think?
Okay, so like you said, I've been toying around with Blue Hero. I play with my heart more than my head, and I want to use the characters I know and love. And I feel like there's a lot of Destiny players out there that do that. So it's nice that some of these characters that you want to play with that are more of the heavies on the hero side are getting some support with this set. And two of the main upgrades that really stand out to me are the generic Jedi lightsaber. This is great with Qui-Gon Jinn and Mace Windu. If you can find it with a Mace Windu power action, you're netting 3 shields. When you place it on Qui-Gon, you're gaining 2 shields. And if you know anything about Qui-Gon, if he's got 2 shields, his character dice are spiked by 1. So this upgrade, even though the size of the upgrade might be a little underwhelming, for $2 you're essentially getting an upgrade and 2 shields, and depending on the character you're using it with in Blue Hero, it can really set up your state and really help out your cause, whether you're trying to deal damage or tank up. So love the generic Jedi lightsaber. And then the Yoda saber is interesting because the sides on it, again, are very underwhelming. They did give you 2 special sides, which lets you remove a shield to deal 2 unblockable. And if you're playing it in a deck that's generating shields, whether it's Rey Kylo, Qui-Gon, whoever, and maybe the new Yoda or Mace, most chances are you're going to have a shield to remove to do the special, to do 2 unblockable. So for $1, you're essentially getting 4 damage sides. And even though the sides of the dice are kind of underwhelming, a 1 melee, a +1 melee, shield, dollar, special, it does have no blanks. And it's easily overwrote later on in the game when you need to close out with a heavier weapon. So I like it for the flexibility and what it brings to the hero side. Anything you can get for $1 that's not trash is something worth considering, you know?
Yeah, I don't hate it. I feel like it definitely has a niche. There's definitely like a niche spot for it. It doesn't go in every Blue Hero deck, but having a 1 cost with no blanks, I mean, It's hard to beat.
Yeah, and I've been there with Qui-Gon and these other blue heroes, and it seems to me that if you're not playing Qui-Gon Jinn and his dice aren't spiked, making money is a problem. And I know we might talk about this card a bit later, or we could chat about it now, but like exchange of information, showing your hand to gain $1, and
Yeah, let's talk about it now.
and stuff like that is helping the resurgence of Blue Hero as well, because a lot of the time in Blue Hero, you don't really care if the other player knows what's in your hand. There's not too many tricks that they might not see coming. It's not where like yellow, where a lot of the yellow cards are kind of trickery. You kind of need money when you're in a pinch for money because Blue Hero struggles to generate money. So the Yoda lightsaber being $1 is nice in that regard. And then having new cards like exchange of information to make $1, even though your opponent does get the chance to then reveal their hand to make $1, some of the time it's worth the risk of giving. You might have to look at what your opponent's playing and consider, can I give them $1 right now? Will it hurt me if I give them this $1? Because they're most likely going to show you their hand as well. So with those cards, the money, the new money generating cards for 0 cost, and these new upgrades giving shields and being cheaper, I think there's a lot of ways to take Blue Hero in the upgrade department.
Yeah, I also like going on exchange of information. I don't really care. Like sometimes if my opponent sees my hand, the like you said, the thing to weigh is, should I give them the opportunity to get $1? And so if you just kind of sequence around it, it's not that big of a downside. And a lot of good decks today make so much money that, what's the difference between 6 resources and 5 resources? You know what I'm saying? There's a big difference between 0 and 1 or 1 and 2. But once you get past like 4, there's not that big of a difference. So, I've kind of been, as long as you're a little strategic with it and you know when to play it, I love that card. And I agree. It pairs nicely with Yoda's Saber or some of the new events that Blue Hero got that Chris is going to touch on in a second here.
So to round out the discussion on the lightsabers and whatnot and other upgrades, between, like, let's say you were making a Blue Hero deck and you wanted to consider some cards, most of your package could be 2-cost upgrades, with the exception of like a couple redeploy weapons that you'd want to splash down before a character died. So going from having all those major upgrades, all the signature lightsabers, the unique ones like a Qui-Gon's and a Mace's and an Obi-Wan's and a Rey's and all that jazz. Well, Rey's is redeployed, but all those big dogs that come out that aren't redeploy, that kind of take a while to get to the table. These are good filler cards, especially when you can get shields and stuff from them, like the Jedi Saber. So I'll pass it over to Chris, who's going to talk about some of the new events we got that Blue Hero can use.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah, what's up, Ryan?
Oh, hey, man. Welcome back.
Oh, hey.
I feel like, and Jim can attest, one of the big problems with Blue Hero, especially Mono Blue Hero, was their events like sucked. If you got past like Pacify, Beguile, and Hidden Motive, it was like, oh, what else? What else am I to put in this deck?
Right.
I feel like that changed a little bit in Spark of Hope. Mainly because of like 1 or 2 specific cards. What do you think?
Yeah, so talking about maybe one card specifically, which is Jedi Mind Trick, which seemed to be kind of the heavy hitting hero blue event of the set. It's kind of funny that it doesn't even really see that much play at the moment. For me, unless the meta really dictates that you're gonna be facing a ton of 2 wide, a ton of decks that just chuck in a bunch of dice into the pool, I feel like I'd rather just have Beguile for 2 than have Jedi Mind Trick at the current situation, right? So talking about how maybe Blue Hero has kind of had a resurgence based on the events, I'm not really sure if it's based on the events that are helping it or just the fact that, Blue Hero is kind of developing this identity of having powerful characters with powerful synergies, with powerful upgrades. And then, their removal kind of takes a backseat to that. As you and Jim mentioned with exchange of information, clearly they're not good at making any money. So, since they can't make money like other factions can, and they, stuff like that, they can't ramp, they have a lot of other built-in power to the cards themselves once they get them on the table. And I think, Kylo Ren is probably the prime example of this entire discussion we're talking about of Resurgence of Blue Hero, where it's not really a Blue Hero deck, but giving blue, I guess, quote unquote, blue melee, blue sticks access to the entire card pool of hero and villain. That's kind of what it took to get this deck to be relevant. As far as where blue, not just hero, but blue melee in general was outside of maybe Darth Vader from last set to be relevant in the current meta. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
I mean, they had to do a complete overhaul. I mean, that's what Blue Hero needed. To go back to Jedi Mind Trick, the reason I like it and the reason I think it's necessary is because Blue Hero has always had a problem with mass removal. So unless it was Beguile, they didn't have a way to touch multiple dice. You know, red
No
villain
doubt.
has best defense. You have easy pickings on the red hero side.
Yellow.
You got
Yellow.
Entangle for yellow. Or yes, I'm sorry, yellow. You've got Entangle for yellow. So there are all these ways to touch multiple dice. And unless they had Beguile, Blue Hero.
There was no other way. Yeah.
Right. So the fact that now you have a card that's not spot blue, it's spot Jedi. So if you have two Jedi, it's pretty much always going to be on unless you lost the game.
Mm-hmm.
You have a card that threatens 3 to 4 die removal. I think it's not like meta breaking. It's not deck making. It's not going to cost you, it's not going to swing a matchup any which way if it's on the table or not, like Vader's Fist, for example, might. But the fact that it exists and gives blue now that mass removal option, I think it's just a huge pick me up.
Yeah. I would totally agree. Yeah, like you were saying, just the existence of it as far as a selection for the faction is definitely a leg up, depending on what you expect to face in a current season or a current meta.
Yep.
But I will also say beyond Jedi Mind Trick is a lot of the blue removal now is just on shields. Like you can have all the dice you want, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to have 6 shields on Yoda, or I'm going to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shields on Rey or Kylo every round. Like they don't really care. Like that's the way that they soak up the damage is based on shield.
It's their mitigation.
So yeah, their form of event mitigation is just soaking the damage on shields. And then by this set, Spark of Hope, giving all these crazy synergy cards like Polarity that Bob touched on before, things like that, Draw Closer that works together with Nemon Mastery. There's a high level of synergy and power within the cards themselves that are not based on removing your opponent's dice.
For sure. Jimmy, you want anything to add or something?
I was just going to say, I mean, I feel so happy talking about this right now because this is where I live. When I sit and make decks for hours, I rack my brain over these combinations and possibilities, and involving a blue character in some capacity is my favorite thing to do, whether it's Maul on the villain side or Vader or just anybody, and then hero on the hero side that's blue. So like Chris said, a lot of it is shield mitigation and knowing when to use your mitigation cards, but like the event package that we have said that came out, the cards that we've touched on, have enhanced the play and they synergize well. So like Chris said with Jedi Mind Trick, sometimes I do feel the same. Like, would I rather have a Beguile here? But then when I was play testing against you earlier, you had Jedi Mind Trick when I had a ton of dice in the pool and it blew me out. So
it was a blowout.
Circumstantially, that card, at least a one of, I can see you including at least one of. Maybe it's not something you include 2 in your deck, but if you have a slot and it's something definitely to be considered.
Makes your opponent play differently because like if I'm playing against a blue hero and I have a bunch of dice that I could throw out there, now I'm going to maybe second guess and like not put everything out there.
Yeah.
Because if you do have it, then I'm like,
you know what else is the worst? And Ryan,
that
you
is
said
a good
this
point.
to me earlier, was like the worst feeling is when someone Jedi Mind Tricks you and you have to decide like, all right, I have to make a decision now. They're probably going to remove, and in your head which pile you're probably going to have them remove. So you have to sweeten the pot on one side and kind of decide what dice to stay here and there. So that is such a literally it's a mind trick because by the time your opponent has decided, they're a little confused. So
like one of the things that Destiny doesn't do, but I think the reason why Mill is so effective in this game is because your opponent is never used to decisions where they have to kind of dictate their own game or like their own loss. You know what I'm saying? Like in Destiny, you're always trying to forward your win condition. I think Jedi Mind Trick or Mill are different styles or different cards that now put the loss condition on your opponent, and your opponent's not used to. I don't know if that made sense, but
no, it does. It does.
Like they're not used to kind of dictating like, okay, if I do this and they pick this pile, is this going to lose me the game? That doesn't happen that often in this game. And that's why I like cards like that, because it's a different, like, it's almost like a psychological advantage that you don't get from other regular, like easy pickings. It's just like, oh, sorry. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess Jim, to touch on your little anecdote there about you playing against Ryan and him having the mind trick. I think cards like mind trick are probably at their best in times like right now when that card does not see a lot of play.
Right, that's a surprise.
Then people are not going to be playing around it. Whereas if it's a really relevant card in the meta, everyone knows about it. Everyone's going to know to not roll 6 dice in the pool because you're going to get blown out or whatever. So I think that kind of goes back to like Beguile / Mind Trick. Like you slot one into your blue hero deck, you're probably going to get some people because they're not going to be expecting it, you know?
Yeah, I think Beguile's always a 2 of. I think Mind Trick's a good 1 of.
Yes, I would agree. I do want to just quickly touch on, I know we've been talking about a lot of the events and stuff. What do you guys think with all of this being new to the game and blue sticks hero / or villain, but mainly hero? What characters are you playing with right now, Ryan? And what have you been experimenting with as far as using these cards in actual playtests?
Yeah, so my baby the last probably 3 weeks has been Old Man Luke and Ayla with Profitable Connection. I've played it almost exclusively over the last, I don't know, 3 weeks probably on TTS and stuff. I don't have any of the games recorded, unfortunately, but I've been trying for a while since he got spoiled to make Luke good, and I just couldn't because Blue Hero just wasn't where it was supposed to be. Didn't have the cards, and just lacked a bunch of stuff. And since Neemon and all these things came out, I decided, let me revisit him because he's only got 2 more sets left and then he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So decided, let me revisit him one last time unless he gets something miraculous the next set. And I've had a ton of success. Not trying to boast anything. I know sometimes TTS wins can be a little bit, but I've been playing against guys that are local. I've been playing against Gabe and Mike and a bunch of guys. And it's like real competition, and this deck's been performing well. Jim, you played against it earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
So you can attest. Just figuring out the puzzle with the different Sarisu mastery, and Neemon pushes it over the edge. But I think finally, I wouldn't say it's top tier. I don't think it's not going to win Gen Con. It's not going to win Worlds, but
it's competitive,
fun deck where you can say I played Luke Skywalker,
Old
Ayla,
man Luke Skywalker.
Old man. Yeah. It's not
drinking blue titty milk.
Not in his,
oh my God.
Not in his, can we say that?
We just did.
It's a podcast.
It's his.
We can say
it.
It's in the movie.
It's in the movie. They can see it.
Ryan
If they could see it, Bob can say
it. Blame Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, I like the movie. Thank you, Ryan, for that movie. So anyway, I don't have a love affection to Blue Hero like Jim does, but I've always loved Old Man Luke. It's always one of those cards where you've looked at and you said, this card should be way better than it is. And I think finally I found a deck where it's good. I think he's good. I think the deck's good.
The reduction for Ayla certainly does not hurt the cause.
No.
Profitable is crazy. Blue Hero needs money. Profitable gives you money, and you can afford anything right off the bat.
For sure. It's just like the old Stairs deck.
Exactly. Yep. Chris, what have you been playing?
Well, lately I have not been playing a lot of Blue Hero, but last season before Spark of Hope, I was playing a lot of the Mace Windu Satine deck. I played that for probably like a month, I would say, give or take. And it's kind of funny that you guys mentioned this because, last season with Convergence, the whole Blue Hero, Sky is Falling, Blue Hero is Dead, that whole thing was kind of all over the place. But that deck was a Blue Hero deck. Mm-hmm. Essentially, I understand Satine's in the deck. I understand the deck is based around Custom Bandolier. I get that it's not a traditional 2-wide mono blue hero deck, but in the end, 90% of that deck was Blue Hero. The combo just happened to revolve around a couple yellow cards. But I just from last season, I really enjoyed that deck. It was really fun. Sometimes it works, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes you got completely blown out. Sometimes you blew people out with the combo. But as far as this season, when Spark of Hope has come around, I haven't had a chance to play a ton of Blue Hero. I have gotten 1 or 2 games in with Kylo and Ray. And to attest to what Bob said, I will say the first time you play that deck, it is confusing as hell. You don't know what you're supposed to do as far as sequencing the power actions and rolling people in and moving the shields or whatever you want to do. But it's a really cool deck. I really like it after I played it a couple times. There's a ton of play to that deck. And, the power of those characters is definitely not to be overlooked.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Recently, I put together a Mace Han lightsaber mastery. Same kind of conundrum with the bandolier
I
package.
think we had a video. I think you had a video on that.
I
Jim,
did.
on the
I don't know
channel.
if I did. I did Mace Luke Solidarity. I just made this Mace Han one today and tested it out for the first time, and it's
Okay.
same concept. Just instead of Satine, it's Han, and then
Han Solo.
yeah. So I think the Mace and whoever got better with these cards. Qui-Gon got better with these cards. Reylo's great with these cards, and then Ayla, for sure, being the flex hero that she is at such a low point cost, can make any blue hero sticks competitive. And I think we really haven't talked about blue villain that much, but some of these cards like Neiman and whatnot make Palpatine and Maul on the villain side as equally geeked up. So just great stuff all around.
I would definitely agree. Yeah, like I said, I wasn't trying to downplay the lack of blue hero or downplay blue hero being dead. I understand that it was.
Yeah.
But, in Convergence, the Mace, I'm not trying to be a broken record, but the Mace deck was a blue hero deck, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I feel you. I feel you.
So
I was agreeing with you.
I wasn't saying you weren't, but I feel like a lot of people kind of overlooked that deck as far as being an option for blue hero, which I believe was popularized by the Destiny Council. The Magnuson brothers kind of created that monster, and I definitely had a lot of fun with that deck in Convergence.
For sure. All right. So we're running out of time here. We got about like a couple more minutes. So last thing before we close out here, let's get some hot takes, fellas. We've been playing with Spark of Hope for a while here. We've got one overrated, one underrated card. Be controversial.
Okay.
Be crazy. Bob, why don't you start us off here?
Well, I just want to go back real quick. We didn't even mention the best blue hero out there, which is R2-D2.
Oh my God.
He is blue hero. And so I just wanted to give him a shout out.
We're ignoring that deck.
Oh,
Jesus.
Man.
He does have sticks on him. So
all right, Bob.
that's
I'll give it. He does have a stick. He has a stick.
Yeah, he's got two actually. But okay, my hot take. So, overrated, underrated cards. I think my overrated card of this past set is probably Separatist Embargo. And a lot of people say like, oh, it's good. And it is good until you think that it's not unique. And then you play two of them and you're quickly corrected by your opponent that it is actually a unique card. So that was kind of a buzzkill for me. Like, obviously, if you can pick out 4 cards in their hand, that's big. But most of the time, if you pick one of them, then the opponent usually has a way out of it. They have another win condition, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So if you say like Entourage, they probably have upgrades or vehicles or some other way to win. So it's okay for one, but I don't know if, having 2 in your deck is maybe a little too many. So that's my overrated card. Do you guys agree, disagree?
Yeah, it's your take.
Yeah, that's my take. Okay. Yeah, actually, I don't care about
hot take, no rebuttal.
Disagree.
No rebuttal, hot take.
Hot take. All right. And then my underrated card is, what do you know? It's from the droid deck. It is I perform violence. Ambush, resolve one of your character or droid dice showing melee damage as unblockable, increasing it by 1 or 2 if it's on my buddy Mr. Bones. I love this card because it's great in even non-droid decks because it'll make melee damage on character dice as unblockable. I think that that's awesome, especially going against like heavily shielded characters like Reylo, like Qui-Gon. I think anytime you can spike your dice value, and even do it as unblockable with ambush, I think it's amazing. So that's my underrated card of the set, in addition to Droid Stay Out, but that's another conversation for another day. So those are my hot takes so far.
That's the first time I've ever heard you say that phrase without doing your stupid little voice while you're saying it.
I perform violence.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Jim, hit me with your hot takes, man.
Before I say anything, I just want to say that I test against Bob all the time, and the amount of times have we said in this show that I play Blue Hero with Shield, and I've died because of a stupid I perform violence unblockable is insane. It's insane, and I get so frustrated from that card, and I tell myself, if it's not Bob, I wouldn't see this card. If it's not Bob, I wouldn't see this card.
You're not gonna see that card out in the wild. Like, that card doesn't exist out in the wild.
Super underrated.
But I'm saying it's good. So I used to criticize it, but
put it with Maul.
It's done its job. Oh my God. It's done its job. So so this is interesting. I didn't really know what to say for overrated. And the reason why I'm picking Thrawn is this. He is super interesting when you first see him and read his ability and the idea of getting to know their cards that are coming into their hand, being able to play an event from those cards and kind of controlling them in that aspect. You're like, wow, that's really strong. I think that ability is amazing. And I've seen some people out there highly rating Thrawn, and then when you actually get him onto the table, you have a really hard time deciding who to play him with and what style to play to use. So if you go aggro, if they kill Thrawn, you're not going to have enough to close the game. If you go mill, when they kill Thrawn, you probably don't have enough to mill them out the rest of the way. So he's overrated in a sense that I don't want to say he's overrated like he's seeing so much play and people are saying he's good. I'm saying he's overrated for the card that they made, being a 19-point cost character and not really having a definition of where to go with him. And maybe that changes as more cards come out, but I just don't like his build right now.
He just doesn't have a partner right now, which kind of is a bummer.
He's just he's stale right now, and he's kind of stuck in his own area. And then my underrated is the Pulse Cannon. Now this is probably a good card that some people are talking about. I haven't seen it in many decks right now, and there's been multiple times, where I've used Pulse Cannon or have been Pulse Cannon and it has swung a game. So if you do have the money and you're in a deck that generates a good amount of cheese and you can get a Pulse Cannon off, it could swing the game by like 8 damage. I mean, all the way up from like, it's a lot. So I've seen that card swing a game, and I think eventually people are going to catch on to how strong it is, and we'll be seeing it more.
I would agree with that, Jim.
Yeah, Baby Fist is good.
Yeah. Who hasn't gone yet?
Chris, go ahead, man.
So overrated. I was going to choose Separatist Embargo with Bob, but since he picked it, I'm going to say,
pick.
Yeah, good pick. I'm going to say Maul, simply because
Jim's shuddering.
I don't think he is as good as Darth Vader, which is why I'm going to say he's in the overrated category. I'm not trying to say he's not awesome. He definitely is fun. He's definitely very cool to play. Power action is really cool to play. He's just a cool character. He's got a lot of damage size on him, but in the end, from a super hyper competitive viewpoint, I would probably rather just play Vader than play Maul at a big tournament.
Probably agree with that, I think.
So I think that's kind of why I put him in this category. You guys had Bob and Jim, had a lot of good choices before me, so I kind of just picked Maul for that reason. And for underrated, I am going to say the upgrade Mastermind, which has a special on it. It's a 1-cost upgrade. It says special says name a card, then reveal an opponent's hand and set aside each copy of the named card. So I think this card right now is being kind of overlooked as far as a 1-cost upgrade. I mean, the die sides from top to bottom are focus, dollar, special, blank. I mean, for one, that is a really good die. And
it's a great die.
Especially with a card like Counterintelligence that is clearly meant to go with this card. You can peek at their hand first with the counter intel, and then maybe if you roll the special, you can kind of get in there and have full hand knowledge. And even without full hand knowledge, I mean, the special is still okay. But if you can peek in there first, obviously it's way better. But I just don't think this card has a home yet for the right deck. But I definitely think sometime between now and when it rotates out in the next couple of years, there's going to be a lot of play of this card in one deck or another.
For sure. All right, so my overrated choice was the new Han Solo. I know Jim loves him, but
hot take.
I know. I just don't think he's that good. I think his power action is definitely way better with a Wookiee, and at this point right now, Chewbacca is just not playable. He's fine as a really cheap option, like a 13 or 12 cost wherever he is.
9-12.
But yeah, he's just not competitive. Competitively viable. Even though he gives you the yellow and all that hot stuff, 1, 2, and 2 resources, I'll pass. And my underrated is Bail Organa. I think Bail is extremely interesting. Yeah, I don't think he has a home yet in his deck. I think his passive ability is very comparable, and don't execute me for this, Bob, but it's on the same plane as Afra in that you don't need him to be the main like the main focus of your deck to get that passive ability. Just like Afra, you can run one die Afra and then just reap her benefits. And if she dies on round 3, you're like, well, fine, I have 000 and BT out, so I don't really care about Afra anymore.
Yeah.
I think Bale can be the problem with Bale. The only problem with Bale, I should say, is his like titles aren't redeploy. So like a droid will stay out there forever when he dies or when Afra dies. The titles are kind of not like that, but I think there will be a title deck that could potentially, with Admiral and Rebellion Leader, I think there is a title deck that exists out there that could potentially be very good. So I think Bale's really good. There's a lot of exploration and creativity space that he lends. And I'm interested to see some good Bale combinations going forward.
I would agree. I mean, really, they only need to make one super decent, cheap title, and we're right in there, you know?
Yep.
Super, yeah. I mean, totally. All righty. Well, does anybody have anything else before we end this?
I feel like, if I had to guess, I feel like Jim has something to say before we sign off here.
I will now. So overall, I want to say that I can say, I'll speak for the 4 of us here. As a collective, the 4 of us love this game, and we are always trying to get better. And we love conversing about the game, playing the game, and doing our best to provide people with possible character combinations, new deck ideas, and just overall guidance. So if you are enjoying the podcast, please comment on our YouTube videos, which Ryan will touch on in a second, and reach out to us on our Twitter handle. The more that the people can tell us what they want to hear, the more we can talk about. And I think that you guys, the 3 of you guys, make me a better player. And there's nothing you can say more. There's only one thing you can say when you're rolling with the Wolf Pack, baby, and that's woo!
So sweet.
So Ryan, I'll let you close it out.
Yeah, so thank you guys all for tuning in to the premiere of the Loth-Wolf Podcast. We are called the Loth-Wolf Podcast, but we are like kind of a subset of the Brothers Dimm. So if you want, head over to the Brothers Dimm YouTube channel. We have a ton of games uploaded. We play on TTS. We have, like I said earlier in my intro, my deck tech videos that nobody watches. And we have a ton of in real life games that we are kind of pushing and trying to get as much content out there. Please leave us feedback. Go check out those videos. Give us that like and subscribe button. Our goal is not only to kind of grow this community for the game that we love, but also kind of give people a new creative look on the game, because we kind of play a bunch of jank decks that Jim can attest to.
Not you.
We play a bunch of things. Yeah, not me. I play meta only. But we pride ourselves with kind of just giving different outlooks on the game. So if you have any comments, questions, feel free to hit us up. We're on Twitter at DIMM the Dim the. It's jank. Somebody already had the Brothers Dimm, so just kind of disregard that.
Roll with it.
Yeah, sorry about that. That's just what it is.
If you have any questions, guys, please, like I said. Oh, Jim, interrupting my outro.
I'm sorry. I do want to say this, though, and it needs to be said. Since we are affiliates of the Brothers Dimm, it would be not right of us to not say that there are 2 more members on our team, and that's Casey and Levi. And they are actually the original Brothers Dimm. And I'm sure from time to time they will be on this podcast. Like Ryan said, this is the original episode, so we're just kind of pilot testing some stuff out. So if you see Casey or Levi in any of our videos, or you see them and you get replies for them online, just know that they are part of the Brothers Dimm and the Wolfpack family as well.
Yeah, well said. I guess
they happen to live much busier lives than all of us combined.
That was a worthy interruption, Jim. I will take back.
I would have felt bad,
again, for sure. But again, thank you guys for listening. Hit us up on Twitter, YouTube, whatever. But till then, Brothers Dimm out.